Wait, we're actually not live yet.
It says we're live.
We're not. It's not set up yet.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
I promise.
We're
Okay,
not,
cool.
it's
Now we're
not
live.
set up
We're
yet.
live.
Okay, so I'll start with my intro. The Sunday Times reported that workers at a factory in Leicester making clothes for Boohoo's Nasty Gal brand could expect to be paid £3.50 an hour. It also saw little evidence of measures to stop the spread of the coronavirus at a time when Leicester was on lockdown. If businesses don't value their workers as people, how can we convince them to value our mental health? The problem is that valuing our mental health doesn't start with businesses. It starts in our own communities. Within BAME communities, it's a taboo to talk about mental health. You get a lot of "that's not our thing" or "it's a white thing." But if that's the case, why do Black men statistically have the worst mental health for all demographics? For the older generation, it ranges from being completely ignored to being a joke, something that's just life or it happens. We need everyone on board. We need everyone on board to solve this mental health crisis. Mental health isn't a problem for an individual to solve. You need support to overcome poor mental health. Our communities are pulling together to make a difference, and you have amazing services like Nilari and Off the Record. There are some awarenesses in schools and universities. Even often, that awareness doesn't translate into action. It's becoming something to talk about. Struggling with it isn't an embarrassment, but that's not enough. It's bigger society, and it's about the economy as well. Businesses need to recognize it for what it is, a drain of innovation, working morale, and profit. So our question for today is, why should businesses care about young people's mental health? Okay, this is great. So you guys could start by introducing yourselves and what you do. Leela, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I'm Shalina. I go to college and I'm in year 12, going into year 13. And I also have my own hair business.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm Max. I think you guys watching probably know me by now, but people watching for the first time, I'm a musician. And yeah, that's about all you need to know.
Okay, so let's just go into the first segment. So the first question is, why is mental health important? So who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Mental health is so important. I think it monitors how stable your life and mental and your mindset is. So it can improve someone's individual well-being as well. And not only your own, but the people around you, the people that you talk to, like you said, the people in your community as well. So it's not just you, it's actually the people around you as well that it could help. If you understand it, definitely.
And Max, why is mental health important? Wait, you're mute.
There we go. So obviously, it's very sort of it's very obvious that physical health is important to your well-being, because it's your body, that's your vessel for being alive, essentially. And it's very sort of it's been for a long time, it's been very reported on, and it's been very sort of in the public sort of in the public eye and in the public sort of interest, that people be conscious of their physical health. I mean, like, athletes are celebrated, and there's a whole gym industry, but then mental health is is the other side of the same coin. you can't really, you know, be fully healthy if you're you know in denial of things, or you're you know, or you've got sort of you know, you've got unresolved psychological trauma and stuff. You know, the thing is that
Yeah.
the physical health is, it's sort of like it's a set thing, you know. Obviously everyone has different bodies and different requirements and stuff, but you know, for the most part you can sort of do the same things marginally, for like a larger amount of people in general, to, you know, to maintain and have, you know, a healthy physical health. But mental health is so much more nuanced and complex, because brains are just insane. They're like, not, I don't mean like, you know, unhinged. I mean they're like, you know, they're the most advanced anything in the world. They're the most advanced organ in your body. They're the most advanced, like, you know, sort of organic life form. They're the most advanced like computer basically, and they have so many different versions, and every single person is entirely has an entirely different brain, and totally different experience as well, which basically means that, you know, people are sort of, you know, as we touched on in the previous one about education, people are sort of put through the same system and sort of expected the same result, when that's not the way it works. Everyone needs to find their own path to you know, sort of come to terms with who they are, and how their brain works. And a lot of the time that would be really helpful if in society and in the public eye there was a lot more consciousness on the fact that it's something that you need to be you know, you need to focus on and you need to be wary of. And yeah, so I think that it's just as important as physical health, if not more, for your happiness essentially. But yeah, that's why I think mental health is important.
Yeah, that was good. And you know, Shalina, you mentioned that you have your own small business. You know, you do hair, which is really good. Like,
Thank you.
this is about business. Yeah, girl. So this is about business. How do you think? How important is mental health to you as a business owner?
So in terms of having to organize the appointments and then communicating with a lot of the customers and thinking about how I'm going to get there, because I don't drive. I only just turned 17. And also on top of that, schoolwork, I've got to set aside time to just think and organize. And if I don't, then I can definitely tell my mental health just decreases. And a way that I would overcome that is just to be more organized. So when I think of the little responsibilities that I have compared to, say, someone that's much older than me, I just think knowing about mental health is essential, really. And I know how it can be stressful for me. So when I think about other people, it definitely confirms that more.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered the question.
I think that was a good answer. But also, Max, earlier you were talking about how mental health, like physical mental health, is valued in our society, whereas like physical health is valued in our society, whereas mental health isn't. So some people would argue that our physical health is valued because it can help towards capitalism. What's your opinion on that?
I wouldn't get me started on capitalism, for the most part. But yeah, I would agree that everything essentially that is you know, popular or centered in like society, in the public eye, and sort of like pushed by corporations and media, is, yeah, that's all to do with capitalism. Like, our whole society is built on capitalism, let's be honest here. So the stuff that you're, you know, advertised, that's because it's you know, that's because those people that you're being advertised things because of have you know, they have the most money already, and they have the most, so therefore they have the most sort of assets for the people who are advertised, who are like using them, who are like, basically they'll pay people to like Google to be advertised like on the top of your search results, because you know Google wants to have they want their best friends to be the people that can provide them with the most money, essentially. So that's the way everything works, essentially, in a simplified version. So yeah, physical health, is really it's really sort of capitalized on, because I feel like mental health, you know, actually does bring up quite a good point, because you know mental health is more about thinking for yourself and making your own decisions, and you know basically what capitalism strives to do is to suppress your individuality, so that you just do what everyone else does, and you just
Having that expectations.
yeah, basically. So I think that might actually be a good reason for what, as well as the fact that, you know, brains are really hard to understand, and it has taken a very, very long time. We still don't really understand or everything about them, but like it's taken a really long time to really work out how incredible they are. Whereas physical health, it's all on the surface, as you can see it, you know, and for the most part. And so that's been something that for eons, for decades, for centuries, people have been able to focus on that straight away, be like, okay, well, I need to be like a lumberjack, or I need to, you know, work in a factory, so I need to, you know, my physical health needs, you know, if I'm sick, I can't come in because I'll make other people sick, or if I'm, you know, if I don't, you know, toughen up, I won't be able to, like, you know, I won't be able to do all this stuff, basically. So it's something that people can like easily zoom, like sort of zone in on and focus on. But mental health, it's like, you know, it, as well as it being something that people are only just realizing has a big effect on your health, on your physical health, and on your well-being in general. It also, yeah, like I said, like you were saying about capitalism, it could also be that capitalism has sort of pushed physical health because it's easier to get money out of it. It's easier for you to, you know, it's easier to sell, you know, protein shakes and gym equipment and gym memberships and you know, and magazines as well, like as Shalina kindly helped me out with saying, the media is a big part of capitalism. There's the whole thing about magazines having unrealistic models and stuff, which, you know, that makes, you know, unfortunately, it makes people feel bad about themselves, and then they pay money to try and look ways that they probably don't, because most people don't look like these, you know, the men and the women in these magazines. So yeah, so that's probably a good reason why physical health has been so much more present and sort of talked about in society than mental health.
Yeah, that links to a comment from the audience. They said mental health can always be seen, and that's why physical health often gets more attention. So that literally links to what you were talking about there.
Absolutely, yes.
Also, we have to bring someone on in a few minutes, but I just wanted to quickly ask Shalina, because obviously you have a hair business. So, you know, you're doing people's hair. How do you think like what you're doing is like helping people, like your customers, in their mental health in a positive way? Like, do you think because they look better, they'll feel better?
That I was about to say that type of idea of if you look good, you'll feel good as well. But to be honest, I think no matter how you look, it's important to feel good. You don't need to put makeup on to feel good, even to look good. You don't really, or you don't need to have your hair done. But just it is nice at the same time. It is nice to get your hair done. So if I could help someone feel good in a way, and that is portrayed of me doing their hair, then definitely I would push that.
I actually have an answer to this question as well, not having a hair business myself, but but it's really traditional for. I don't know what sort of Shalene. I don't know what sort of the capacity of your hair business, but in a traditional sense, like salons and barbershops and stuff, they've always been a place of community. I mean, maybe not so much anymore, but you know, in more sort of like in less sort of in less like larger cities, in like smaller communities and stuff, they're sort of like a place of community. You know, you can go and you feel included. You can make friends there if you go regularly. And like and obviously there's a big part of hairdressing when you're in a salon and stuff. Is like talking to like obviously they can not want they prefer to just have their hair cut and their hair done and like not talk, but you know it's something that you like, that it's like half of the, not half of the business, but it's a lot of the business is like to provide that sort of like that sort of that sort of companionship
relationship in some ways.
And personally, I actually really enjoy like the whole hair washing and like head massaging experience. That's really calming. Like I mean, when do you get head massages unless you like go to a spa and get regular massages and stuff, like, and you're rich or whatever? Like, when do you get head massages? You don't. Like, it's a really nice sort of like relaxing experience, and I feel like
it does create a community.
Yeah, and you always come out of like of a hairdresser just feeling like refreshed, and like you've had a good chat, you've got a new haircut. It's like getting a new pair of shoes, but like a whole new there's so much more to it, so many more levels.
So that kind of links to the next question. It says like, how is it valued in your community, family and friendship group? So like how is mental health valued within your own community?
Talking about it, I think talking about it allows people to understand it more and then value it more, because if you are unaware of how important it is, you're going to think and have a mindset that you can brush this off, or it's not important. But once you talk about it with your family, your friends, really trying to emphasize and understand how they're feeling and how they might be going through a hard time or a good time, can help a lot of people in your community.
100%. But guys, we have to bring Munira in now. She's going to join us and we're going to talk a bit more about that question. So here she is. She's going to join us and we're going to talk a bit more about that. So, hey Munira, do you want to quickly introduce yourself and what you do?
Yes, my name is Munira. I do several different things. I work for Off the Record. I manage the team called Zazie. So Zazie is a team which is concerned about BAME people's mental health, or the well-being of BAME people coming from Black ethnic minority backgrounds. And we try to work creatively. It's important that we work creatively and we work flexibly to look at mental health, the causes of mental health in our communities, and to try and have a framework. And in fact, not even just a framework, but just to have various different frameworks and be aware of different ideas and different ways of working, because we realize that some of the frameworks that are in place just are not really suitable to so-called minority communities, essentially.
That's so good. So what do you think about that question? Like, how is mental health valued within your own community?
I think this is a really interesting question, and I think about it a lot, how is mental health valued within my own community? So first of all, if I'm talking about my community, being someone who works in mental health, I'm around a lot of people who work in mental health. So that is valued from that sense. I think about my extended networks, I think about my friends, I think about my family. And so a lot of the time we have conversations about mental health, and I realized that if we put a name or a terminology onto it, there could be miscommunication as to what we're talking about. But if we're talking about how are you feeling, or what can you do to feel better, or someone feels down, this is getting really serious now, what do we do about it? I think the conversations of mental health you know, and particularly to do with poor mental health, these conversations are being had within my communities, my various different communities. But I think a lot of the time there is a reluctancy sometimes to engage with it from a mainstream perspective. And I think a lot about this mainstream perspective and why is there a reluctancy to engage with this. And I think, you know, it's very common for a lot of mental health organizations to say, you know, how do we engage with BAME people? You know, they just won't engage. They just don't believe in mental health. But if we are to sort of like look back historically, then within my brothers, my older brothers' generation, within my parents' generation, you know, they are aware that at times engaging with particular systems have been detrimental for our community. So if someone is from a Black community, if someone is from an Asian community, and they are now deemed to be someone to have mental health problems, what does that mean? And what does that look like? When it comes to Black people specifically, when we are going through the process of being or having mental health issues, like how is that seen? How is that looked upon? If there's a young person in school who has mental health problems, how does that look to a teacher coming from someone from our communities? That's not seen as this person needs help. That's not seen as this person needs support. That's seen as this person is aggressive. This person is a troublemaker. And so then embarking upon engaging or going down that road could be very difficult, because oftentimes it leads to being in mental health institutes for extended periods of time with no real support and no real help and no real cultural understanding of how we work. Sometimes it leads to having various interactions with the police. And so I think maybe there's a wider conversation that needs to happen within our communities about what are the fears, why they're fears, and also some of the labeling, like this person has this condition, this person has that condition. If we just find ways to break this down, I think we'll be able to have more conversations about it.
100% agree. Yeah. What do you guys think? Max, what do you think about that?
Yeah, on that subject, I think it would I mean, I live quite central in Bristol, so I don't know, it's like there is kind of community, but it's not like, you know, it's kind of annoying because in sort of towns that are removed from cities, you know, you've got this really tightly knit community, everyone knows each other, and that can be really healthy because it means that, you know, you have, like, it's not even like friends, it's like, you know, it's like your neighbors, but your neighbor is like, it means more in a tight-knit community, because, you know, you're involved at least a little bit in each other's lives. It means that when, you know, one is having a hard time, the other one knows about it and might actually care and help and stuff. But in cities, that's kind of lost because of how many people are there and because of the ethos of cities. But then in these towns that are removed from the cities, because it's so tightly knit, and it's like, you know, they don't have quite so much, they're not exposed to so much, you know, so much diversity, that can actually be quite toxic as well. So it'd be really good if there was like a crossing over of like the way those worked, and you know, we had these tightly knit and communicative neighborhoods in the city, and these places outside cities had a bit more, you know, got out of this, went to the city and got out and went different places more often to get more of an idea of what it's like, you know, more of a worldview. But I can't actually quite remember what the original question was.
Yeah. The question was like, how is mental health valued within your own community?
Okay, so within my own community, yeah, well, like in my music career, it's been quite high up in priority, because at the end of the day, I think the most meaningful music comes from expressing your emotion, and that is, you know, intrinsically tied to mental health. If you don't know about your emotions and you just ignore them, that's not great mental health, because it's quite a broad term, mental health. There's mental health, like, you know, you could have an actual disability that affects your brain, which means you have a mental health problem, right? But it can also just be, you know, not feeling comfortable in your own skin. It can not be feeling comfortable where you are in life. It can just, it can be a lot of different things. And yeah, and in my opinion, the most meaningful and like relatable music comes from actually, and like, the most unique music comes from a person actually expressing how they actually feel, and sort of, and making it poetic, or not even making it poetic, just being honest, basically. And so yeah, when I've been in bands and when I've been writing music and when I've had friends in the music, in the music circles, I've always resonated more with people who do care about people's, about people in, basically, because a lot of the time, a lot of people are trying to get somewhere in the music industry because they want to be famous or because they want to be rich. Most people, I would say. So it's really important, I would say, to find the people, and to weed out the people who actually don't really want them. Those aren't the most important things to them. The most important things is that it's therapeutic. It's actually something that they're passionate about, and it makes them feel happy to do that, and to talk about their emotions and stuff, and um, and and to make music that tries to sort of show other people that they're not alone in not always being, not always feeling their best. So yeah, and yeah, I think I've got I've got enough friends who I'd be able to talk about. I feel comfortable talking to, about mental health, not just mine, but just in general, just the discussion of mental health, which both are really important to have. So yeah, I think I feel quite privileged, because there's, I'm sure there's many people who have just sort of like, their friend groups are for the wrong reasons. They're in friendship groups because of, they're in friendship groups because of, solely because of interests, and not necessarily because they actually care about each other, and they actually, like, want the same things for each other and want each other to succeed. And yeah, I think I've got a few friends who I'd be able to, I feel comfortable talking to, and opening up to, basically. And I think that's important to have in your community.
Yeah, that's so true. So the next question I'm gonna ask is like about the arts, because we have a musician here, we have a poet, someone who does poetry. So are the arts, so like poetry, music, dance, etc., a positive impact on mental health? Munira, what do you think about that as a poet?
I'm biased. I'm biased. I'm going to say yes, absolutely. I think it's definitely a positive influence. I mean, just to talk about the arts generally and just think about how much it contributes to people's well-being, how much it contributes to England generally, even from looking at a financial point of view. I think where an issue can come is where other people don't value exactly what arts does. And so oftentimes you find a lot of artists, a lot of like people involved in creative industries struggling to try and make ends meet. And this isn't the experience of everyone, but a lot of time you hear people talk about these various different things. But the arts itself, I think, is very good, is very therapeutic. We hear a lot of stories about a lot of artists going through depression and going through various different types of things. But I think what that has done is made many communities, particularly I think my arts community, which I come from, is made us very reflective and very considerate towards other people. We check in on people. How are you doing? Are you okay? But yeah, there is definitely a power in the arts of therapy, being therapeutic and communicating. And I think this is essential, really.
100%. Selena, what do you think?
Definitely, just to echo that, I when I think of arts, I think it comes in many forms. One of those forms is obviously singing, and people have been singing to get through hard times for centuries. So when I think of what Tanya said about therapy and how it's therapeutic to sing with your community, to whether that's through drawing, can definitely have a positive impact
100%.
on someone's well-being.
Yeah. So you guys, why do you think it's important that we value mental health? And what are the benefits of valuing mental health as a community?
That's a really interesting question again. And like, I feel like it is essential to value mental health, because it is, first of all, it's not devoid from the world, from living. Is a part of us, is a part of humanity, is a part of humanness, is a part of living, is a part of being. And oftentimes we divide it as something additional, but no, is a part of our whole. And so in many respects, if that isn't right, then we are not right, you know? And also because even though we experience mental health, I guess in many ways individually, my idea about mental health is that it is a personal thing, of course, but it's also a communal thing, and it's a social thing as well. When we look at and a political thing, even when we look at mental health, and we see poor mental health in particular areas, and that's like prevalent, that tells us that there's something going on in those areas. If we see it in specific communities, that's an indication as to something is happening in these communities, and there's a need there that's not necessarily being fulfilled by the wider, whether you say the wider government, whether being recognized by or wider society, or whether there's something being recognized by the government, but it is an indicator as to how we are doing as individuals, how we're doing as community, and how we're doing as a society as a whole, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. Does anyone else want to answer that?
I would just say it's important to value it, because for our children and for the next generations, I believe that some children, they don't know how to channel their emotions, and they don't know what mental health is. That's something that needs to be improved, that we can teach our children what it actually is and what it means, and how we can help them to, again, channel their emotions, so it protects themselves and it also protects other people as well. For when they get older, they'll know, okay, I'm in this situation, say I have anxiety, and I know how to deal with it. I know how to improve my mindset and things like that, because they were taught when they were younger. And so, yeah, that would be why it's important to value.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that point, Shalina. I don't know if you saw one of the promo videos for this Let's Talk, but Stara interviewed her little brother, and I found it hilarious because I think he pieced together. He said, I think he said he was 8.
Yeah.
Stara asked if he knew about mental health, and he was like, no. And she was like, have you been taught about it? He was like, no. And she was like, what do you think it is? And he was like, well, health is like, you know, how healthy you are, like, you know, playing sports or something, and mental is like when you're crazy. So yeah, it's like crazy. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's the sort of that's the conclusion you'd come to if you've never been sort of taught about what mental actually means. Because like, yeah, I mean, I guess as a child, I mean, obviously, children are, you know, they've got a lot of developing to do, many in all of the factors. But so of course they're not going to be totally sure on how to channel their emotions. I mean, most adults, I would say, don't really know how to channel their emotions properly, and I think that's a really poignant thing because, you know, there's people who have, like, you know, lived their whole lives not really thinking about it, and like that means, you know, when you finally have the epiphany of how important it is, it's like, man, how many people have I hurt? How much hurt could I've avoided? You know, could I have avoided if I'd been conscious of this and not just sort of pushed all these feelings down and pushed all these issues down without talking about them because, you know, they make me feel uncomfortable, or they make, you know, or they're not cool or whatever, or like, you know, my friends would like laugh or something. Do you know what I mean? Like there's there's lots of there's lots of development that I think people need to do, not like just children obviously, but also, you know, once you're an adult you actually have no excuse, kind of, other than obviously what Manera was saying about how it's, you know, it's also an issue of society and government and stuff, because, you know, the only excuse that adults have not focusing on their mental health and not being conscious of it and not caring about it is that it's not sort of, it's not advised to, you know, there's not a lot of people saying you should do that. There's not a lot of, because it's not, it wouldn't be beneficial to a capitalist society. But yeah.
100%. But guys, we're running out of time now. We have to bring on our next guest. So thank you so much, Manera, for joining this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Don't get me on capitalism either. I'll go on for days, but thank you for having me.
Can we quickly get some off the record, you know, like credentials and stuff or something, you know, do you want to plug some stuff for off the record?
Yeah, actually, in fact, we're at Project Zazie, we're always running groups. We have one-to-one sessions that are free. We have well-being practitioners. We have therapists who are able to offer various different things. We have many groups, you know, social action work. So please get involved, come see what we're doing. If there's anything we can do to support you guys specifically in terms of the great work that you're doing, just let us know. We're here for you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. So quickly before we bring in Michael, I'm just going to do a call to action. So guys, please send in your comments. What are your thoughts about the issues? We want to hear them. And if you're 16 to 25, please sign up for Babbasa, their professional work placement opportunities. And if you want to join the show, just contact Pravanya. Her details are in the description. So Michael's here. Hi.
Hi, hello everybody. Hi, how are you doing?
We're doing great. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Right, okay, very quickly. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to come on and speak. My background is that I'm presently working for Nilari, which is a mental health charity in Bristol. And as well as that, I also run my own wellbeing consultancy. And I've been living in Bristol for about 26 years now. And I have a slogan of always take your lunch break. I don't know if anyone mentioned that to you before, but it's basically a self-care banner, where my sort of aim is to get people to look after their own well-being and to make it a priority, a non-negotiable priority, because without good well-being, everything else that you do really hasn't got any foundation. You need to be looking after our own mental health. So that's my thing. That's what I'm really, really passionate about. And talking about it, discussing about it. Yep, I'm happy to do that.
That's great. So the first question is just, why do you think businesses don't value the mental health of their employees?
That is a brilliant question. And one of the reasons is that I think that mental health is invisible. And that's the big issue. You cannot really see it. If you have an employee that's broken their leg, or, you know, they've got a strained neck or something, it's something that's visible and physical. You can see it and you can sort of like connect with it. But because mental health is invisible, people can go undetected. And that's really the dangerous thing about it. And people will just try to push ahead with their feelings and emotions suppressed. And if, you know, there's no one in the workplace to recognize or pick up the signs, then they just continue and they don't see it. No one makes any, you know, flags it up. And then the next thing you know, people are having mental breakdowns, mental illnesses, and then all of a sudden it just comes to a head. But because it's not seen or indicated, then that is the big problem. And then it becomes one of those things that it's not a priority because you can't really see it. You know, if someone says, "Oh, I've had a car crash, I can't come into work, I've broken my leg," it's, "Oh yeah, I get it." Mental health is like, "Oh, I can't see it. What's the issue? What is it?" So it's one of those things that people don't really talk about.
Yeah, that's so true. What do you guys think? Why do you think businesses don't really value mental health?
I was going to say something similar to what Michael said about it's not necessarily some businesses' priorities to think about how their employees are doing how their workers are mental health is, if you don't come to them with a problem and they can't see it, it's like, well, that's not really a problem. Your parents haven't passed away or something like that. But so that's kind of what I would say.
Yeah, that's so true.
I'm going back to capitalism because that's why businesses don't care about mental health, because it doesn't make them money. Like Michael and Sheena have said, if someone breaks their leg, they cannot physically come into work. They've been in a car crash. There's nothing your boss can say to make you, like, they're not gonna come to the hospital and drag you into work. That's not. But they can. If you have come to them, and this is the worst part, like, it takes a lot of strength to admit that you're not strong. You're not feeling strong at certain times. For some people, it's not easy to sort of like open up about your feelings all the time for a lot of people. And so if you go to your boss and say, I'm not going through a great time, I'd appreciate maybe some reduced hours or whatever you feel you need. They have they have no reason to not be able to continue to make you work. They could just be like, no, this is your job, so you do it. Like, there's nothing physically stopping you from being able to come into work, even though mentally, like I was saying before, mental health affects your physical health. So it may feel like you've got 10-ton weights around your ankles, and you don't want, you can't go in, but because you are able to physically, as a husk of as a working just meat sack, you can go in and you can do the labor basically. And so therefore the boss has no reason to be like, okay, take some time off, or I'll you can go home early or something, because you've got family troubles or whatever. And yeah, like, I think it's a really bad. I mean, I clearly obviously don't agree with capitalism in the first place. Obviously, it has its merits and stuff. There's a reason that it's in place. But yeah, it's really bad and it's really unhealthy, and it basically prioritizes people working over how people feel. Where at the end of the day, in a utopian world, everyone likes to do something, right? Am I right? Like, I've said this before. No one is literally sat at home staring at a wall, staring at paint, watching paint dry. Everyone enjoys putting their time into something, and at the end of the day, that's something you could make money from. If you have the right opportunities, the right channels. And although it would be a difficult system to put in place, it'd be great if everyone could be doing what they love to do, to make a living for themselves. And not only that, but also, I understand that that's not easy to do. So if businesses did care more about their employees' mental health, then it would make it feel better for them to be, for employees who, it may not be their passion, but it may be what they're doing to get by. It would obviously make them feel better about doing it if they actually, if the people who employed them actually care about their well-being. And I'm pretty sure that there's a statistic somewhere that says that companies who actually prioritize their workers' mental health actually thrive. Yeah, they may not get as many sales or whatever, make so ridiculous, obscene amounts of profit that they could be, but they make enough, and that's a worthy sacrifice for their workers wanting to be there and wanting to work for them and stuff. So yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's a really good point that you touched on, Max, just at the end, because I was reading some stats before I jumped on, and if there was mental health support in UK workplaces, they would actually make up to £8 billion more per year.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's quite interesting. Yeah, and then 1.6. Is it 1.6? Let's check. Yeah, 1.6 employees in staff across the UK are suffering from mental health illness at the moment. So actually suffering with it and working, and 12.7% of illnesses in any workplace in the UK are mental health related. So it actually does pay business to take note about mental health in their staff. It really does. So money wise and productivity wise. And as we know, there are about, I think it's 1 in 5 employees in the UK take a lunch break. I know that sounds really sort of basic, but if you multiply that across a staff of 500, that's a lot of people not taking a lunch break. So people are just working through lunch. As you know, working through your working day, if you don't take a break in the middle of the day, your productivity actually goes down. So you're not doing anyone any favors, yourself or your workplace. So you're becoming ill and you're not producing work. But what is happening is that there's trends in workplaces generally where if someone else doesn't take a lunch break, then you don't do it because you don't want to be looking like the weak person or the softie. So you just keep working through, but you're suffering. And so this is why I'm trying to encourage people at work and in general to actually take a lunch break. And you are by law allowed to take a lunch break of an hour. If you work 6 hours or more straight in a workplace, you are actually by law allowed to take a lunch break. There's nothing illegal about it. You cannot get sacked for having a lunch break. But yet I've spoken to so many people recently who've said things to me like, oh, they've got so much work, they've got to get it done. And the saddest one I heard excuse for not taking a lunch break is that they were scared to take a lunch break.
Oh.
Yeah, I've actually spoken to an employee, I won't say where, but they told me that they were scared to take a lunch break because, again, fear of losing their job, fear of being reported. And it's absolutely ridiculous. And this is why we've got to change the culture in workplaces. We've got to change people's mindsets about looking after themselves. As Max said, if you don't look after yourself in your workplace, that then affects your home life. Because if you're stressed at work and you go home, that stress gets dumped on your family. So your poor family, friends and loved ones are getting dumped on just because you've got this built up stress at work and you've got nowhere to release it. I'll stop talking now, but you get the gist. Yeah,
yeah, definitely. And I was just going to say that when I was in secondary school, my teachers would talk about how they would have to take the work home and mark it, and they would be up for hours, and during the summer holiday, they would be marking our books. They would always kind of complain about it. So it's just mirrors what you said about when you take your workload home as well. It affects every aspect of your life, just from one community of work.
100%.
Yeah, no, I was literally about to say that thing about I want people to write that down. Like you are officially, like no one is allowed to deprive you of an hour lunch break every 6 hours of working. So if you're working at a job and you didn't know that and you've been like being worked the whole day without any breaks and being threatened with stuff, then
it's illegal. You can't do
that
it.
is literally illegal.
It's illegal.
You know, suing isn't a big thing in our country, but you could do it. You do it, do it. But yeah. So I would say that that's my answer to why businesses don't mental health. You know, maybe it's because it's such a long-standing system for bosses to just you know care about sales and nothing else, not really worry about mental health. It's like it's not no one from a higher echelon of companies is you know sending out emails going check in on your employees' mental health because it'll build productivity, because that's work, that's extra work for the people who want other people to work for them. It's work to change your ways, to change your mindset, to think actually if I you know gave some of my employees the time of day, it could actually raise, you know, it's kind of a toxic reason to do something, you know, it's kind of selfish, but at the end of the day, if it makes them happy too, it's mutually beneficial. So yeah, that's why.
That's great. Guys, we're getting some questions from the audience coming in. So one of them says, do employers create an environment where staff feel comfortable to talk about mental health? What do you guys think? Do they actually do that, or do they just try and brush it?
I would say that what's happening now, sort of like the last 5 years, is that mental health has become a bit more of a talked about subject. And so some employees are making that effort. Obviously, some choose not to. As Max was saying, some are actually just focusing on, you know, the productivity. But the sort of adverse thing about that, the sort of backwards thing about that is that if you don't look after somebody's mental health, their productivity goes down. So it actually, as you said, Max, will pay the organization to spend a bit of money providing information and a space for their employees to talk about these can be difficult subjects. Again, the stats I picked up just before I came on, for example, it would cost about £80 per employee just to provide them with some mental health and well-being support. But that could result, if there was an employee staff of about 500, multiplying 80 by 40, so an investment of around about £40,000 would give them a return of 347,000. So, so it pays to invest in your staff's well-being, is my sort of long-winded answer to that. And so more companies, if they actually looked at played the long game, they're playing the short game. It's like, we want you in here, do as much as you can. If you die, we'll get someone else. Sorry, that's a bit graphic, but yeah. So it's the way it goes. But instead of investing in long-term in your employees, keeping them there, making them happy, they will produce more work. And if they're happier people produce more work. I'll stop talking, sorry.
That's fine, that's fine. I would say no. Workplaces in general don't provide a safe place to talk about your feelings and talk about your emotions. I mean, like lunch breaks, people want to go outside. If it's raining, people will stay inside. It's quite difficult to find a workplace where you're actually getting along. You get along with all of the people, all of your your peers and your fellow employees. And it's probably largely to do with the fact that all you're doing when you're working is just working, and you don't really know a lot about each other. You don't really know if you like the same things and stuff. It's quite hard to find a workplace where you feel comfortable with the people that you work with as well, because of this whole ethos of just working. And like Michael said, people working through their lunch break and stuff because they feel like pressured to or whatever. But yeah, so that's about the only chance you get is like at lunch break, when you're all sitting down to have lunch and you can talk to each other. That's about the only time that it would be that's possible to have a safe space for talking about things. But that's not provided technically, specifically for that reason by the employer. Now, when I was working at a job, I was fundraising for charities. And I remember we had a seminar, a group, we had times where we go off into a group to talk about things, for when this is boring, but GDPR came in. So basically, this whole, your security was upped, and it meant that it meant that you have to be absolutely sure that someone is who they are and stuff. And there was so many more security sort of protocols that came into place in around 2017, I think 2018. But yeah, so we had something about that, but we never had any seminars about focusing on mental health and being able to be open about it, which that would be, in my opinion, the employer providing a safe space to talk about that stuff, is that actually take work time, take a break, and bring people into a room and be like, we want you to be happy here, and we want to do as much as we can individually for that, so never feel worried or scared about coming to any of us with any of the administration with your issues, because we care, and we're not just going to blow you off and be like, get back to work, whatever, maybe take a 5-minute break and get back in, and not just breeze over the problem. We actually want you to be able to talk to each other and to us about what's wrong, and we'll do our best to work around that, essentially. So no, I don't at the moment.
That's good. Guys, you've only got a few minutes left of Let's Talk. So we're just going to go into our final question, which is from the audience as well. So there's a question from Lizzie, and she says, do you think that COVID and lockdown has made it easier for people to talk about mental health and check in with each other? So does anyone, Shalina, do you want to say something about this one?
Yes, I would say yes, because lockdown has allowed us to pause and think and really take in what's happening in the world. We've seen with Black Lives Matter, we've seen with all different types of things, and just to be able to, again, sit back and reflect on what's happening. So in terms of mental health, it has affected everyone. It has affected absolutely everyone, especially in the UK. So it's easier to talk about it because your neighbors will know about COVID and how that's affected them as well. Your brothers and sisters will know about it. So it allows an environment where you can freely talk about it without anyone judging, because actually it has affected everyone, even if they claim that, oh, it hasn't. So that's what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, I would. Oh, sorry. Are you finished?
No, I'll just say we only got like a few minutes left, so yeah, you could say it though.
Yeah, I wanted to agree with Shalina. Absolutely, absolutely. Because of what she said, you know, this situation, this pandemic situation, has really brought to the fore. I mean, we all have mental health. Let's get that straight. We all have mental health. It's a bit like physical health. You could have good physical health and bad physical health. Just the same with mental health. You could have good mental health and bad mental health. It depends where you are. So Shalina said that this pandemic is really bringing out, you know, the pressures and anxiety. And at the Nilari agency, our mental health agency, we have already seen a 30% increase in the demand for our services. So that's just a stat from my agency. So, you know, people are really beginning to come out and speak about it now because they're feeling the hurt, they're feeling it. So yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have, you know, who've always just been on it with their work, always, you know, like, you know, they're just striving to achieve all the time, finally having to like stop, you know, and, you know, like, obviously if you've devised your own method of working, like there's a creative way, you'd still be able to be doing that job. But if you've always just been working at like, you know, jobs where you go in and you do work, and go, you know, simple, effective, it finally brought a situation where people have misplaced energy. They don't know what to do with themselves, and that is, I think, one of the main elements of mental health, is being able to be in your own company and be like okay with that, and have things that you can do that aren't to do with work that will relieve your stress and be therapeutic for you. So I think that's probably, you know, a large reason of the people, you know, of the increase of people demanding your services, because, you know, people are like, I don't know what to do with myself, and like, because I can't work, and that's another product of capitalism, if I'm gonna be honest. But yeah, can we, before we go, can you talk a little bit more about Michael, your organization? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry, I said I'm back. Yeah, Nilari is it's a BAME based mental health charity. So we specialize in working with minority parts of our community. Not only work with everybody, but we specialize in that. And we just basically help people to understand and manage their situation, and hopefully, you know, gently move them on with the support that they need. It's been around in Bristol now for about 20 years, so we're really proud of the fact of that. And we're based in Stapleton Road, so right in the middle of Bristol, where, you know, it's a very, as you know, multicultural city. But as I said before, there is definitely now a big rise in the increased demand for the service. And as you said, Matt, people are talking about how they're feeling more. And I think the pandemic has allowed people, almost give them that license to talk about it, because now everyone, as you said, Selena, is being affected by it. You can't really hide from it now. So yeah, it's a positive thing, but we need to deal with it.
That's so good. Thank you so much for joining us, Michael.
It's my pleasure.
Bye. So guys, just want to say a quick call to action again. So thank you so much for watching Let's Talk. So please go into the description, you can see Pravania's details. If you're 16 to 25, sign up for Babbasa. They are professional mentors. They can provide work placements and opportunities, which include being on this show. So please, and if you are someone with money, please can you donate so we can keep doing this. And you could join us in 2 weeks, and we're going to be talking about why do we need new ideas from young people. So thank you a lot. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.